Hello, I'm Christopher Walker with Closely Observed Teaching, and I'm joined today by Glenn Standish, who is the Director of Studies at International House in Torun. Glenn, nice to see you again. We've met a few times online like this, more times online than face to face, I think.
I think so. We've only met once face to face, and that was the ICE Torun Teacher Training Day last year. But yeah, thank you very much for having me again. Thank you so much for inviting me back again. It's great to be here.
Now, you've actually already started the school year a bit, haven't you? I've still got kind of a month before we get cracking at International House Bielsko-Biała. What's it like there in Torun?
It's a weird feeling being back in the real school, which good and weird in a positive sense. You know what I mean? Basically, I've got two new senior teachers, new to the school at least, who I'm training up at the moment, and also we just started the IHCYLT course, which is the International House Certificate for teaching younger learners and teenagers, and we're doing that mixture of face-to-face and also online as well. And yesterday I actually delivered two back-to-back face-to-face sessions with 6 of my teachers here, and it was kind of surreal being back in a physical classroom, standing at the whiteboard. Even the sensation of writing on the whiteboard with a whiteboard marker. It felt weird after so long, but also really, really good. And obviously we tried to social distance and tried to have the teachers sitting sort of like as far apart from each other as possible. I also deliberately didn't really change the partners. So normally I would swap them around, and so they would be able to talk to as many people as possible. But yesterday I deliberately kept them in the same pairs for most of the sessions.
I think that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Definitely. Yeah. Okay, so I've got 3 little areas for us to look at in our chat today. And the first one, I thought we could look back very briefly at what the last couple of months have been like and what it's been like for both of us teaching online, moving to this online world of delivery of education this way. How do you feel about it? What have been some of the good things and the difficult things?
I think generally it's been positive. I mean, a lot of people say that you can't replace face-to-face teaching with online, and they are correct to a certain extent. But I think what happened has completely revolutionized English teaching. I think we are never going to be going away from online lessons. I think we as teachers will, even if it's like a blended learning sort of course where you might teach the students, obviously you see students twice a week, and first lesson in that week you might see them actually face to face. The second lesson might be online. I think there's going to be some of that, and I think we are not going to be able to avoid online lessons anymore. And I think a lot more people, a lot more teachers will be teaching online. But of course, I'd love to get back to face-to-face if we can. But right here in Poland, it all depends how it pans out with the situation with state schools. Of course, schools are going back. It's the 1st of September, next Tuesday, and we have to see how it pans out. If suddenly, the COVID-19 numbers increase dramatically, I'm sure there's going to be some change. But I'm not sure whether we are going to go back into the lockdown stage again. I mean, in terms of the economy, I think I think that there's going to be lots more limitations and restrictions. I'm thinking about ahead now. I should be thinking about the past. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the actual online lessons from last year, there were lots of pros, to be honest. I know a lot of students actually really enjoyed themselves. And we've got students next year who want to actually just have online lessons. Because if you think about it, just a click of a button, they might be living 20 kilometers away from the school. Click of a button, click of a switch, just straight in the lesson.
Absolutely.
So, it's quite convenient.
Yeah.
Last year, I did a great lesson. Did I tell you that lesson I did with that whistleblower?
I don't think you did. No.
Okay. I was doing a lesson with my C1 students, advanced level, and we were talking about the media and how it has impact on certain things. And then the word whistleblower came up. And I happen to be friends with Catherine Gunn, who is actually a real life whistleblower.
Wow.
In fact, there was a movie made about her. It was called Official Secrets, came out last year. I think Keira Knightley played her in the movie. And I thought, you know what, that'd be fantastic if we could get Catherine Gunn to join our class the next lesson.
Oh
Yeah?
my goodness! Wow.
Now, Catherine lives in Turkey, and obviously, in a normal face-to-face lesson, it would be impossible and a lot of money to fly her over. So we actually did this, and it was great. I mean, I didn't tell the students that they were going to meet Catherine Gunn. We brainstormed, lots of stuff about whistleblowers. We got them to think, why did they do that? What it would be like to be in that situation where they blew the whistle and leaked some, secret information. Then I showed them the trailer of the movie to get sort of like, build their schematic knowledge and get them interested in the topic. Then I showed them a real interview, CNN interview between Catherine Gunn and Christiane Amanpour, a very famous CNN journalist. And they watched it for a bit, and then I hit them with that. I said, okay, guys, now it's your turn. You're going to be real life CNN reporters, and you're going to interview Catherine Gunn. Oh my God, the reaction.
Wow.
It was amazing. And you could see they were so excited. And I then put into breakout rooms. They brainstormed, they came up with some questions together. And when they came back to the main room, lo and behold, Catherine was in the room waiting for their question. And they interviewed her. They gave her some incredible questions.
Yeah.
And they're very, intelligent, very highbrow questions. And they were interviewing her for a good half an hour. So, I mean, that was just a great way of using Zoom in the classroom. And I think all of them now, I think they're going to remember that lesson for a long time.
Oh, I can imagine they will. Well, I mean, what I like about that lesson is not just the fact that it was made possible through online methods, but it's a reinforcement of what we've been saying for a long time, which is that the skills that you accrue as a teacher are still just as important online as they ever were in the face-to-face classroom.
Yeah.
Like I can imagine how somebody might have been tempted to jump the gun and say, oh, we're going to have a special guest next time, so she's going to come in and say hello, and then you'll ask her questions. Instead of doing that, you framed it, you gave the context, you had like step by step and plan, added so much value to the experience for these students.
It was a great experience for the students, and I did actually ask them for feedback, and some of them wrote really, really positive feedback about that particular lesson. I mean, at the end of the day, when are they going to interview somebody who was actually played by Keira Knightley in a movie? I mean, that's
Exactly.
So it was one of those unique lessons.
Absolutely. But I from speaking to other teachers, I've met some, especially at the start of lockdown, who were especially concerned about online teaching because they thought that it would involve a completely different skill set. But from what you've just described, that's really not the case at all, is it? It is that you still need the same skills and abilities that you've developed over the course of your career, maybe just tweaking some of them and taking advantage, really, of the possibilities offered by the technology. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, there was real danger as well. I mean, when we did go into lockdown and we had to, the transition from face-to-face to online teaching, there were a lot of people out there who were throwing all these apps and stuff. I mean, we talked about this last time, I'm sure, but and there was real danger of teachers getting lost in these apps. And I'm not saying, these apps are a bad thing, but sometimes we just have to go back to the basic teaching that we were trained as teachers, and the simple camera and course book, and there you go. I'm not a massive fan of the whiteboard function on Zoom. I know you use it, and I know a lot of teachers do, but there are other ways around it as well. I mean, Padlet, which I was using today, is very effective. And just a simple chat box function as well is also just it's great.
Yeah, the chat box has really helped me to bring quieter students into the class. I mean, you have that situation in a normal classroom where, I mean, you try to avoid asking questions to the whole class, but it happens sometimes. And then it's always the same one or two people. Oh, I know. Their hands immediately shoot up. What I did was a little tweak in my lessons where I would say, I'm going to ask you this question, please just listen. So then say the question and then write your answer in the chat box. Everybody had to do it, because then if names were missing from the chat box, I could say, Antosh, where's your answer? And then he would start, you'd hear the keyboard clattering away. So it managed, it was a great way of getting everybody involved. They would all contribute all the time.
And also in terms of classroom management as well, Christopher, I think, with younger learners, it can be easier to manage them online. by simply muting them.
Yeah, although I had a terrible experience with that, I have to admit. I don't know if it was that I got something wrong on Zoom, but I muted a student who was being far too noisy. But then I couldn't unmute him. I could only give a request for him to unmute himself.
Yeah.
This was a kids class and he was like 6 or 7. The
Mm.
parents had decided that I was now like a babysitter and they'd gone off. So for the rest of the lesson, they couldn't get the microphone working again.
Yeah.
I was,
But
horrified.
the problem having them unmuted is, often you've got the parents in the background and they're chatting away in Polish, and it's very distracting for the students. Or they might have, I mean, you obviously tell them to be quiet, so but easier said than done. So I think it is good to mute them if you can. But in the early days of Zoom, you remember you just literally click on mute and click on unmute, and it would do it for everybody. Now you have to go and click on each and every one, and you have to ask something. You have to ask unmute, and it's a bit of a faff, to be honest.
I remember when we got started with Zoom, we did a group meeting with about 40 or 50 teachers all invited into the room at once, and I demonstrated the mute all function. Now, I can't imagine having to do that now with that many people. No. But then it comes down to kind of a kind of classroom code of conduct, doesn't it? I was listening to a podcast that Russell Stannard did recently where he said that with a lot of his online teaching, especially with older learners, he tells them straight away at the start, I would like you to turn off your cameras so that we don't kind of ruin the internet connection, for one thing. And I'd like you to mute yourself unless you're speaking. And he kind of trained them on that so that every lesson, that's what it was. And I suppose teaching to a blank wall on your computer screen is not ideal, but at the same time, there are students who have internet connectivity problems, and this is a good way to get around it.
And also there were teenagers who might have cameras, but they absolutely refuse to turn them on for some reason. They just, they're conscious camera shy, should we say.
Very true, yes.
And, at the end of the day, as teachers, you can't force them.
No, that's very true. Yeah. I mean, data protection acts come into it for one thing, don't they?
Yeah. So there are a lot of issues like this,
Yeah.
And so, yes, there's lots of pros and cons, but I generally think there are more pros with teaching online.
Yeah, I would agree with you there.
And so many more teachers are, added an extra string to their bow, shall we say? Like now we can say we're online teachers, and that's something to be proud of.
Absolutely.
When we used to have online lessons in the last couple of years here at our school, it was mainly just done, one-to-ones online. Using Skype. And now, we're familiar with Zoom. Far more effective, I think, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Especially with groups. I mean, I think the greatest asset of Zoom is their breakout room function.
Yeah.
I think that is absolutely fantastic. And we've looked at lots of different alternatives to Zoom. And, they might be, cheaper, and they might be better in many other ways. But for me, Zoom is the best because of the breakout room function.
Of course. There is, however, one feature that I wish that they could add to Zoom to treat teachers kind of as teachers, which would be a kind of like, you've got the breakout rooms, but the teacher's sitting just here. And instead of having to join and exit each breakout room, they were presented on the screen and you could click and hear what was happening in that breakout room. If you could do that so that you could monitor all of them at once, you'd be able to get right in and deal with problems.
Because Zoom, let's be honest, I'm pretty certain Zoom was created by someone who's not a teacher.
Oh, no, absolutely. It's a business application, isn't it?
They should listen to us. They should listen to us.
We are the big demographic now, aren't we?
Definitely.
Yeah. So that kind of brings us then to something we've touched on already, which is what the immediate future holds. Do you think that we are going to get back to normal in the next 6 to 12 months? Or do you think that it's going to be something in the middle? Or if the infection number does go up, do you think we'll be back where we started with the lockdown?
The latter, I don't think so personally. I mean, obviously I'm no expert, and I don't think anybody is, really, even the governments, really don't know what's happening, because obviously, this is the unknown.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to be in the extreme situation where we're all at home in lockdown. However, things are going to be different. I think, we are not going to ever go back to a norm. I mean, people are talking about, scientists are saying, COVID is going to be around for several years, if not forever. It's going to take time to find a vaccine and things like this. So I think, it's a way how we adapt into the situation. Obviously back in March, it was a big sudden boom, and they had to think about extreme things. I mean, Poland literally closed its borders overnight. I'm not sure if it's ever going to go back to that again. It remains to be seen. As I said earlier, on 1st of September or 2nd September, whenever it is, students, will be going back to state schools. And that gives us a bit of time, because I know your school doesn't start until like early October, I believe.
Well, the main IH doesn't. There's a primary school that's somewhat connected to the school that starts again in September, and I'll be working there 2 days a week. That will be face-to-face. I'm waiting to hear what the measures will be that they're introducing to contend with COVID.
Well, we're beginning on the 21st of September that week. So we've still got time to see how things pan out, but we're aiming to go for like face-to-face. But we don't know at the moment. It could be like a mixture of sort of like a hybrid lesson where, as I mentioned earlier, one group that week will be, face-to-face, and then the second lesson that week will be online. Who knows? In terms of, I think, in terms of things we need to do, like to implement, during, lessons and stuff. I was thinking about this. I was training up my senior teachers last week, and I was showing them loads of great activities to consolidate vocabulary, games and things like that in the class for young learners. I'm thinking, crikey, these activities are quite COVID-y. Think about the simple activity of fly swats, flashcards on the board. And the kids are well, think about how many hands are going to be touching those fly swats. Or even think about the Cully toy throwing game where you throw a toy. So we as teachers, and obviously, as academic managers, we're going to have to help the teachers. But teachers, we all need to come up with different ways of how to keep the games as effective as possible. Also, try and make them as less COVID-y. I don't even know if that's a word, but it's a new word now. COVID-y. I like it. So things like we're talking about possibly having slightly longer break times for the in between lessons, so teachers will be responsible. This is what's going to happen at IH Torun. Will be responsible for cleaning materials, cleaning desks, cleaning the handles of the doors and stuff in between lessons. So with disinfectant, of course. In terms of masks or visors, I think we're going to, teachers will wear them. But in terms of students, I don't know, it all depends on what the regulations will be in the country. Now, I know in Scotland, they're talking about like enforcing masks for all children, at least secondary school children to wear masks. It all depends. Here in Poland, it depends what the government enforces. But we got to understand from our point of view as a private language school, we're not like a typical state school. Because of course we have adults as well. So I don't know, I think, my decision would be that teenagers and adults, teenagers over a certain age would have to wear masks in the class, and I think children probably not, but the teacher would. So things like that. So it's going to be kind of similar face to face, but it's going to feel a lot different at the same time. And I think teaching with a mask or an visor, it's going to take a bit of getting used to, I think.
Absolutely,
So little things like, getting the students to come up with the board to write, maybe not now because, you don't want to share your pen or your materials with them and stuff. So, it's going to be different. It's going to be different.
For me, one of the biggest challenges that's going to come up is, of course, flu season. And how do you tell the difference between a student who has symptoms of flu and symptoms of COVID? And then what do you do with that student? Do you tell them, okay, well, you've got a runny nose and a cough, so we're taking no chances, please go home?
Again, I think it depends what the government's, issues with that. I've spoken to some teachers who run schools here in Poland, and obviously they'll be coming up with their own rules. And I know one of them who said that, the moment somebody, a kid has a high temperature or ill, don't come in. Just don't come in, So I can see some problems. I mean, here at our school, in between lessons, we usually have lots of parents clogging the corridor, at any moment you can have over 100 people in the corridor.
Yeah.
And one idea is that we simply don't allow parents to come into the building to wait. They're going to have to wait outside. But then again, come rain, come sleet, snow, they're going to be outside.
Exactly. And if you've got students who are 5 or 6 years old and who might, I don't know, get scared or anxious because the parent's not there, does the teacher then have to take care of that student until the parent is found? There are a lot of unknowns.
Definitely. But I think, a lot of it, we just have to wait until, until it happens. We have to cross that bridge when we come to it. But
Absolutely.
It's very good, and it's important to be thinking about this. What we're doing right now, we do need to try and, assume and have some assumptions and anticipate a problem, just like you would in a normal lesson plan.
Exactly. Yes, exactly right. Again, it's traditional skill sets that are of value, isn't it?
But at least we're thinking about this. And
exactly. I mean, because it worries me when the government says children will be back at schools start of September. End of story. And you think, okay, well, end of story means that you're not even thinking of backup plans or contingencies. We have got that possibility, I suppose, within private schooling, where we can say, well, this is what our backup plan is going to be, and we put it to our customers, essentially.
And we have time. And in a way, the secondary, so the state schools are opening up early. They're the ones who are going to be the guinea pigs. And
exactly.
We're going to be seeing what, So we'll be following them closely. We'll be watching them closely what happens.
Yeah.
I really pray and hope it's not going to be a disaster and we're going to have to go into lockdown again, because, that was a tough gig. That was tough.
It was definitely. Yeah. Okay, well, that covers the things that I wanted to look at with you, Glenn. This has been fascinating. I mean, we could talk for hours.
We could.
Who would want to listen to that? Everybody, obviously, everybody would want to listen to that. Yes, sell tickets to it. But thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on these different topics, Glenn. And
it'd be interesting to meet again, maybe 6 months down the line, see where we are. What's
absolutely.
happening.
Yes. Okay. So I'll guess you'll be going back to your young learner certificate work right now.
Yes. Got to finish typing up some feedback.
You couldn't do a video recording in Zoom then and send that as the feedback, could you?
No, it's all got to be written.
Oh well, never mind. Anyway, thank you very much again, Glenn, and I shall see you next time.
Bye-bye.